Wow, stories.
Am I the idiot for leaving home? After my mother slut-shamed me. In front of my brother, I am so embarrassed, angry, hurt, just really going through all of it. I, 22-year-old female, came home tonight from a long day of work, and my mother comes to me and says, "Your brother and I want to have a chat with you about last night." Last night, my boyfriend came over and we had intimacy. Nothing out of the norm, but I guess I was too loud this time. We always try to do it discreetly, but I got caught. So my brother, 19-year-old male, and mother, 52-year-old female, had a chat with me about how uncomfortable it was to hear me. My mother was doing most of the talking and was speaking for my brother. I was getting emotional, so I looked at my brother and said, "Why did you not come at me directly with this? We are both grown-ups. If you had a problem, you come to me." He stayed quiet, and my mother got defensive, saying, "This is not a whorehouse. Go book a hotel room if you want to do that." I was offended that my mother's essentially slut-shaming me for having intimacy with my boyfriend of 3 years. I look at my brother and apologize sincerely because I made him uncomfortable, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. He forgave me, and that was that. It hurts because my mother is acting like I'm bringing different men to the house. Things got really heated between my mother and me. So I start crying and I call my boyfriend to tell him what happened. He says, "I'm sorry for getting you in trouble. Do you want to come over?" And I say, "I would like that." So I pack up my essentials and I left home. My mother has called me, but I'm refusing to pick up. And my brother doesn't know that I left home. I feel really embarrassed and I don't know what to do. A part of me feels really bad for my brother, but at the same time, he is an adult. He should have come up to me one-on-one to have this conversation. How do I move on with this? I don't want my boyfriend to walk on eggshells anytime he comes over now. To add, thank you for all the comments and advice. I appreciate all the honest feedback. There are a few things that need clearing up. My boyfriend lives about 40 minutes from my place. He lives at his parents' as well. I wish I could magically move into a brand new apartment tomorrow, but that's not how it works. I am planning to move out of home in February 2025, as that is when my annual leave will be, and I will have enough saved up for me to move out. I work 6 out of the 7 days a week, and don't have time to move out just yet. My brother and I are on good terms. Like I said in my post, I apologize for making him uncomfortable, as I never wanted this to escalate to this extent. He forgave me and we are all good. I'm going to talk to him one-on-one. What has made me upset is more of the fact that my mother slut-shamed me and made this a bigger deal than it has to be. Of course, I talked to my boyfriend. We agreed that we won't have intimacy at my mother's place. It's not like intimacy is a big deal in our relationship, but we will manage. He visits me at most twice a week, so it's not like this is an everyday occurrence. Now for an update, hello again. I am very overwhelmed with all of your comments, and again, I would like to say thank you all for your feedback and advice. I came home about an hour ago and I had a lengthy chat with my brother. He said that he should have talked to me privately, but he had to tell someone. I completely understood why, and I apologized to him again for what he heard. We hugged it out, made a few jokes about it, and moved on. After that, I talked to my mother. I started off the conversation with, "Is my boyfriend not allowed to come over anymore?" And she said, "Of course he can come over. We love him and your relationship." I mentioned that I did not appreciate the whorehouse comment, and she got emotional. She told me that it was wrong for her to say that, and that she should have talked with me one-on-one instead of bringing my brother and having a whole discussion about it. She was really beating herself up about it. I got emotional too, and we talked about boundaries and what we can and can't do, obviously, lol. We hugged. She sincerely apologized and told me stories about her and my late father, and it made me feel a lot better. So that's that. This is probably going to be a story that I'm going to laugh about in a few years' time, but yeah, thank you again. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You are quite old enough to be having intimacy. But if you want to do it freely and be loud, get your own place. I will, however, say your mom was beyond wrong for her nasty comment. I understand that you and your brother are adults, but I can also imagine he may have felt uncomfortable bringing it up. Comment 2. I came home the other day and my 21-year-old was in the bath with his girlfriend. I yelled through the door that Jesus was watching. We all laughed and laughed, then got pizza and continued our 6 feet under binge. My point is, your mother should get a grip. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. So, after that whole mess, I decided to stay at my boyfriend's place for a few days to cool off. It was nice to get away, but it also gave me a lot of time to think about everything. My boyfriend and I had some deep conversations about our future and what we want. We both agreed that we need to start looking for a place of our own sooner rather than later. The plan to move out in February 2025 felt too far away, especially after all this drama. When I finally went back home, things were awkward. My mom was trying to act like everything was normal, but I could tell she was still upset. My brother was avoiding me, which made me feel even worse. I decided to have another talk with him to clear the air. He admitted that he felt caught in the middle and didn't know how to handle the situation. I told him I understood and that I was sorry for putting him in that position. We hugged it out again, but I could tell things weren't completely back to normal. A few days later, my mom and I had another argument. She was still upset about the whole situation and started bringing up other issues that had nothing to do with what happened. It felt like she was using this as an excuse to vent about everything that had been bothering her. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. I ended up yelling at her and she yelled back. It was a mess. After that, I decided I couldn't stay there anymore. I packed up more of my stuff and went back to my boyfriend's place. We started seriously looking for apartments, even though it was going to be tough to afford one right now. We found a few places that were within our budget, but they were all pretty far from our jobs. It was frustrating, but we were determined to make it work. In the meantime, my mom kept calling and texting me, but I ignored most of her messages. I needed space to figure things out. My boyfriend was super supportive, but I could tell he was getting stressed too. We were both working long hours and trying to find a place to live on top of everything else. It was exhausting. One night, my boyfriend and I had a big fight. He was frustrated with the whole situation and felt like I was putting too much pressure on him. I felt like he wasn't being supportive enough. We both said things we didn't mean, and I ended up leaving his place and driving around for hours, not knowing where to go. I finally went back to my mom's house, but I didn't go inside. I just sat in my car, crying and feeling completely lost. The next day, I decided to talk to my mom again. I needed to try to fix things, even if it was just temporary. We had a long, emotional conversation. She admitted that she was struggling with a lot of things and that she took it out on me. I told her I was sorry for everything too. We both cried and hugged, and it felt like we were finally starting to understand each other. But things didn't get better right away. My brother was still distant, and my boyfriend and I were still struggling to find a place. I felt like I was stuck in limbo, not knowing what to do next. I started to feel really depressed and anxious. I didn't want to go to work, and I didn't want to be at home. I felt like I had nowhere to go. Then, something unexpected happened. My boyfriend got a job offer in another city. It was a great opportunity for him, but it meant we would have to move far away from our families and friends. He was excited about it, but I was terrified. I didn't know if I could handle such a big change, especially with everything else going on. We talked about it for days, weighing the pros and cons. I knew it was a great opportunity for him, but I was scared of leaving everything behind. I was also worried about my mom and brother. I didn't want to leave them when things were still so tense. But in the end, I knew I had to support my boyfriend. We decided to take the job and move to the new city. Telling my mom and brother was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My mom was devastated and my brother was angry. They both felt like I was abandoning them. I tried to explain that it was the best thing for me and my boyfriend, but they didn't understand. It felt like I was losing my family all over again. The move was stressful and chaotic. We had to find a new place, pack up all our stuff, and say goodbye to everyone. My boyfriend and I were both on edge, and we had more fights than ever. But we pushed through and finally made it to our new apartment. It was small and not in the best neighborhood, but it was ours. Starting over in a new city was tough. We both had to adjust to new jobs, new routines, and being away from our families. I missed my mom and brother, even though things had been so difficult with them. I felt guilty for leaving, but I knew I had to focus on building a new life with my boyfriend. One night, after a particularly hard day, I got a call from my mom. She was crying and said she missed me. We talked for hours, and it felt like we were finally starting to heal. She told me she was proud of me for making such a big decision, and that she understood why I had to leave. It was a huge relief to hear her say that. My brother and I are still working on our relationship. He's still hurt and angry, but we're slowly starting to talk more. I know it will take time, but I'm hopeful that we can get back to where we were before all this happened. So that's where things stand now. It's been a crazy few weeks, and I know there's still a lot to work through. But I'm trying to stay positive and focus on the future.